As listeners may know, we started the other week chatting about Intel vPro, a platform that powers businesses, big and small, and helps all those in IT roles up their game. Happy to have back onto the show Eric Chong, Enterprise Client Technical Sales Specialist at Intel, to share more about the Intel vPro platform this week and how you could be an IT hero within your organization. Hi, Eric. Thanks again for your time.
Great. Thanks for having me again, Mark.
Yeah, looking forward to continuing the conversation. Before we talk specifically about remote management, which I think is going to be one of the big sort of pillars of today's talk, please give us an Intel vPro 101, if you will.
Sure, Mark. When I discuss vPro, I discuss it as a platform, meaning there are very specific ingredients from a hardware perspective that the manufacturer must have before the manufacturer can put a Intel vPro sticker on that device. Really, there's four basic pillars behind vPro. We call it built for business or best for business. Yeah. And those pillars are performance, stability, security, and manageability.
All right. And I know we'll dive into a couple of those today. And I know that Intel vPro isn't just for enterprise companies like, big banks and what have you. So even those who are listening who work for smaller companies, this is relevant?
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of the actual small to medium businesses buy vPro, even the very small businesses buy it. And personally, even all my personal PCs are actually vPro branded in my household. And I can provide some analogies in terms of how I use vPro in my household as well.
Please.
Sure. In terms of remote manageability, my actual son's PC is an Intel NUC. It's a very small desktop PC, and he has a 27-inch monitor that he used for online learning during the pandemic. And he still uses that PC to check his homework every so often. But because the actual small Intel NUC is mounted behind the actual monitor, it's very difficult for him to turn it on. So I use something called Alarm Clock, where I can actually remotely power on that device every day at 6:45 a.m. So he's ready to go to school. He doesn't have to reach around his PC, which is hard to reach. He can that PC's up and running when he needs it.
All right. Again, that's part of remote management, which I want to dive into now. So this is part of the Intel vPro platform. So let's clarify what we're referring to exactly with remote management.
Sure. A lot of people today and historically still think vPro is active management technology. Those terms are used synonymously, when in fact, active management technology, or AMT for short, is just a subset of the vPro platform itself. Simply put, active management technology provides IT the ability to manage a PC out of band. When I say out of band, that means that machine can be in any state. It could be hung, blue screen, powered off, no operating system, and IT can pretty much do everything as if they're physically in front of that particular PC. And this provides a tremendous business value to the users and the business itself, because you can solution things very, very quickly by minimizing a physical visit to that PC, or what they call in the industry, truck rolls.
All right. So if you are in a company and you want to be able to remotely access another computer, and I know there's lots of different applications for that, the Intel vPro platform facilitates that through remote management technology. So I guess we're talking things, Eric, here like installing security updates, repairing or troubleshooting an issue, installing apps remotely, operating system management. Is that fair?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct, Mark. So one of the most widely used uses that we see for vPro, more specifically active management technology, is the ability to power on that device so it can be patched or an application installed. Because as we know, if a PC is turned off, you can't patch it or do anything with it. So we have to, number one, ensure it's turned on. There are many other use cases that we see with the power on features specifically. So for example, not only can you turn on that particular PC, but you can power it off. So we see it being turned on for patching and ensuring that the actual PC is up in things such as classrooms, so that when the professor or teacher starts a class, they don't see the Windows updating scenario come on board.
Yeah.
And we also see now a lot of organizations turn off their PCs, the desktop PCs, when they're not being used for green initiatives.
Oh, right. That's a good point. Yeah, no, so I can see the appeal here is that, you don't want to get to work and you're all eager to get going and you turn on your computer and now you have to wait through all these patches, as you called it, which are basically updates to the operating system or some apps that are installed on that operating system, and you have to sit through that. Or if you try to multitask while those updates are happening, it may be a slower experience overall because your machine is trying to do a few different things at once, or it may ask you to reboot the machine, which is going to interrupt your workflow as well. So I can see the appeal of that. We are chatting with Eric Chong, Enterprise Client Technical Sales Specialist at Intel. We're talking about the Intel vPro platform, which is baked into many computers today for businesses big and small. And I know you've already talked about active management technology, or AMT. I believe that's the hardware part of it, Eric. But can you talk about the difference between that and Intel EMA, which is the software component?
Correct. So Intel AMT is the hardware piece on the actual PC. You do need the enabling software, which is Intel EMA, or Endpoint Management Assistant. That software is provided at no cost from Intel as part of the value add proposition of vPro. Now, once you have Intel Endpoint Management Assistant installed, what happens is you will now be able to activate your vPro PC or AMT based machine, and then you can start managing that machine securely. So in other words, if you have a vPro PC, Mark, I just can't go in and start hacking at it. Well, once it's activated and it can speak to my specific MS server, I can do things such as hardware, what they call KVM in the industry, or keyboard video mouse. I can pretty much do everything as if I was in front of that particular PC. So one very common use case scenario is a lot of people use disk encryption on their PCs. And depending how it's set up, the disk encryption may have you do what they call pre-boot authentication, meaning that before even Windows starts up, you have to enter a specific user ID and password. When the machine gets hung, you as the IT administrator can get to that pre-boot authentication before the user can, which is good because that way you can remote into that machine, put the appropriate credentials in, and get in that machine. That cannot be done just through any type of software solution. You do need out-of-band management, namely vPro, to do this.
All right. So again, it's not like the computer is going to boot up its operating system. This sort of is a layer or stack before then. So you can sort of supersede any issues and get in on the hardware level, if I'm understanding it correctly.
You are correct, Mark. And for example, Bitlocker is a very common disk encryption utility that's included with Windows operating systems. Yep. And in the IT world, what happens is that sometimes it gets asked what they call a Bitlocker recovery key, which is a 20-digit key. And it's not going to be very effective of you trying to read that 20-digit recovery key to the end user. So instead, it's better just for you to enter it in for them on their behalf. And that can be done through the actual active management technology.
Yeah. Again, anyone listening in IT understands the importance of this kind of technology because it just makes the whole organization run a lot smoother. It is not asking individual employees to be, tech experts. This is letting the IT person or persons do their job. So that makes a lot of sense to me. And you mentioned the word security, Eric. I know that a lot of people would be concerned about granting access to anybody, outside of the organization. But let's be clear that with Intel vPro, you're handpicking who has access to remotely access your computer, which is basically your IT person.
Correct. So because the Endpoint Management Assistant tool set is based on modern manageability, you do need your appropriate credentials to get into that particular server so you can manage these vPro PCs. The Endpoint Management Assistant can manage both vPro and non-vPro PCs. We know that not all the environments are 100% vPro. So even with this tool set, you can actually still manage the machines that are not vPro in your environment.
So Eric, what about those in a hybrid work environment today or work from home environment? How can this remote management feature of Intel vPro help those businesses out?
Yeah, Mark, we've seen a huge uptick in terms of people, what we call activating or turning on the active management technology piece of it, especially because of hybrid and remote work. For example, if people want to VPN into their actual network from outside and they can't get the VPN to work, usually it's a piece of software. Now with Intel active management technology, you can remote into that particular PC, help them set up their VPN. So now they can actually access their actual resources as if they were in the office.
All right. So again, at the end of the day, this is all to help a business stay productive and competitive, find efficiencies, do more in less time, hoping to boost profits because you could just focus on your work at hand and let the technology work a lot more seamlessly and independently of running the business. You could just let the IT people, again, do their thing. So I love the whole campaign of IT heroes that Intel has right now because these IT folks are often underappreciated. They'll often get the brunt of people's frustrations with their technology, but really they are the heroes that are keeping the organization running smoothly. So this is great stuff. That is what it's called, right? IT heroes.
Correct. Yeah. The best website to go to is intel.ca/IT heroes. And there'll be more information on it, such as the overviews, papers, and even videos.
All right, intel.ca/IT heroes, where you can learn more about the remote management component of Intel vPro that we've been focusing on today. And there's more Intel vPro discussions to come in the coming weeks and months. So great stuff. Eric Chong, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it. I've enjoyed the chat. Thanks again.
Great. Thanks, Mark.